All right, so I realized the last part of that video cut off, and so I'm re-recording, and I think it's also serendipitous as it kind of helps me maybe end in a different light that's maybe a little bit more helpful. So I ended up having to completely like cut off that relationship. I don't talk to my ex. I haven't talked to him since our divorce, and I think that was definitely needed to give like time for both of us to do our healing separately. And yeah, I think it was the most healthy decision for sure. But I do want to also like say that that's kind of like, that was a really hard thing to do, because you have to also keep in mind that this is like, this was my person, right? This was my best friend, really, for a large portion of my adult life as I was navigating a lot of these things, right? And someone that I thought would be in my life for a very long time. And I think I need to be very real with how I feel about that, because I think it's important. I think that is ultimately, when I look back on my family history, I saw a lot of my family members in these really unhealthy situations, right? And especially my mom, right? I really felt a lot of affinity and understanding and a lot more empathy for my mom as far as why she went back to my dad, even after everything, when I was in that situation myself, right? And so I did not leave very lightly, and it was not easy for me, right? But I also had this like understanding of like, I needed to understand and accept that like things were not going to change, and that if I could not love him for like the broken pieces that I was getting in that relationship, and the minimal effort that I was getting, and the lack of like care and respect and honesty and communication, and the fact that he wasn't going to take action without there being basically an ultimatum for that, like told me that it was not a priority for him, right? And so I had already seen an example of like how that would turn out, and I just didn't want that story. But does it hurt? Is it still hurtful? Absolutely. It still hurts. It still really hurts. It's still really hard. Like, I still really like hope for the best for him, and like I like still really care. Like, that didn't go away. I just knew that I couldn't be the person to be there to help him, because he didn't want me there. And that's what his actions were showing, is that he didn't want me there. He resented me for constantly pushing him to like address some of these things, right? And that's why he was avoiding it. And so I just needed to accept that me in that space, like, that is just the capacity for him and how he could show up for me. And I needed to show up for myself in a better way, because I deserved better. So it felt as important to add that caveat, because I know there's so many women, and like possibly men too, that are in these relationships, right? And it's so hard to walk away, and I just want to acknowledge that. But I think it's really important. I think it's really, really important on both sides to really take care. That's why I shared my family history, my family story. Like, you can see, like, it's generations of damage from people not taking care of their relationships, right? Like, that's my great grandma, that's my grandma, that's both sides, grandpas and grandmas, that's my parents' story too. And unfortunately, it's part of my story as well. So it's really, really important, like, these relationships that we choose in our lives, right, to have healthy foundations, right? Otherwise, it's not just you that you're affecting. If you have children, if you have nieces, if you have other people that are witnessing that relationship, that is what they're going to see as normal and, you know, ultimately gravitate towards. And I think it causes a lot of pain. It causes a lot of heartache in our society. And I just really think that we could do better for each other. So yeah, that's really what I'm hoping from this history, is just to understand, right, the effects that these relationships have, the impact, why it's really, really important that we're very thoughtful about the people that are in our lives, and we kind of start to wake up and look around at some of these patterns. Like, it's not just my family. I'm sure there's lots of other families that have these generational repeating patterns and traits, and maybe there's something there. If you're finding that you're constantly in relationships that for whatever reason you're getting the same type of response, like, there's probably a reason why, right? There's something to sit with there and something to reflect. And so I'm hoping this is the end of the line for suffering for myself, my family, my generation. I'm hoping that we've kind of broken that chapter by closing this, and like finally having someone that has walked away. I don't know if I shared this earlier, but my grandparents on my maternal side were married until they passed away. We talked about my dad and his mom dying young, right? And some of the tumultuous in that relationship. Like, my great grandparents were married until death, and you know, so were my parents, right? And so I'm really the first generation to kind of see some of these things and like be able to walk away and potentially have some sort of different outcome. And I don't know what that's going to be, right? I'm still figuring that out, but I'm hopeful that at least this was helpful for someone else, that it's helpful for, you know, my family, and that there would be some good that comes out of all of this pain and tragedy for someone somewhere. So that is my crazy family history story, my crazy story, bringing us up to mostly today. I'm not gonna share more details unless there's really like people have questions. I'm happy to answer, but yeah, I think that kind of ends this part of the series for now. And then I think in the future, you know, if things come up, then I'm happy to kind of answer those for folks. But yeah, thank you for listening.